Good morning from sunny California. I hope you all are having a wonderful morning and a great week. And I just want to welcome you to the online AMCT. I wish we could do it in person, but that is not to be this year. And so today I just want to talk a little bit to you about the topic of what makes it worth it all in regards to our ministry as chaplains' wives. What makes it worth it all? The first thing I want to talk about is the fact that every duty station is different. It's not just about the difference in location or maybe the job title that your husband takes on at the new duty station, but the dynamics of that duty station as well as the opportunities that are at that duty station. And I encourage you to relish the adventure that God has for you at the new place. Pray about how God would have you to be involved and what your ministry can be at each duty station. Now, yes, keep in mind, your very first ministry is to your husband. Your second ministry is to your children. But there is something that God has for each of us in a personal level at each of our duty station. If we ask Him, Lord, show me that niche, show me that thing that you want me to do and to be a part of at the duty station that I am at, and He will do that for you. I'll be honest, moving to California was very difficult for me. It's the first time in all the years of us being in the chaplaincy that it was the duty station that when my husband said, this is where we're going, that I was like, I don't want to go. And I didn't. And it was hard for me, and my heart hurt, my soul hurt. I felt myself, you feel that rebellion creeping up. Lord, I don't want to do this. This is not what we had planned. We had planned to finish where we were, to be able to be close to family and to the littles, and to be able to be close to a brother who is struggling with health, to be able to go take a day's drive and go visit our youngest son in college and be able to spend time with him. And all of that was going to change when we moved from the East Coast clear to the West Coast. And that was very hard for this mama, for this daughter, for this sister to do. But God was so gracious in leaving us in North Carolina for 6 years, and to be able to see our family grow, to see the littles born. I got to be there for so many special events. And for when the times were hard, I was there. I could have been overseas or anywhere else. And God left me there for that time. Now this time, He had a different purpose and a different plan. I struggled about it. I hurt. I cried. But God touched my heart and showed me that He was big enough that if He didn't have a plan already down the road for me, He would have shut the door for us to go back to California. And He didn't. He chose to leave that door open and to call us to that. It was time for me to stop throwing a fit and figure out what it was that God had for me at this next duty station. So yes, we are not together in person, but I thought maybe you might like to join me in the kitchen. And I'm going to make one of America's favorite foods, one of probably my top 10 favorite foods. I personally love, can you guess it? I love pizza. I love all kinds of pizza. There's so many variations when it comes to the crust, to the sauce, to the toppings. Some like it spicy, some like it sweet, some like it Asian. There's all kinds of fun things you can do with pizza. This is just gonna be your typical pile it on. Let's see how much we can get away with pizza from start to finish. So the first thing I wanna do is I'm gonna put my Bible away and my coffee. We'll set that off to the side. What we're gonna do is we're gonna start with a tried and true, simple pizza crust. This is my favorite part of the pizza. I'll tell you a secret. My husband doesn't like crust. Works out perfectly for me. I'll eat one piece of pizza and he gives me all his crust and I'm a happy girl. So crust is something that is important to me, but I also don't want to spend all day making crust. So let's see how we can do this and enjoy the fun of just let us chit chat a little bit while playing in the kitchen. So the first thing we need is our bowl. Now, when it comes to making crust, so here I've already mixed up my warm water and yeast. Yeast is kind of like the story of Goldilocks and the Three Bears, in that you don't want your water too hot, And you don't want your water too cold. It has to be just right, because if it's too hot, kill the yeast. Too cold, it never wakes up. So you want it to be just right there in the middle so that you can get a nice rise on your crust and that everything goes well from there. So we already have that ready. The next thing we want to do is this is not a hard recipe. I promise you, you don't even have to need this recipe, okay? You can do this. So this will make a cookie sheet pizza. So you take 2.5 cups of flour, and we're gonna pour that in. Then we also have 1 teaspoon of salt. Pour that in there. And we have 1 teaspoon of sugar. That goes in our mix as well. And then we're just gonna take our fork and we're just gonna mix it up a little bit. No big deal. The yeast in the water, do that first, let it sit for a few minutes, see how it gets kind of that milky, frothy look. That's what we want. The other thing that we need is 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Now, this is how I cook. I don't measure stuff all the time. It seems like every time I actually follow a recipe, it doesn't come out very well. So, now we're gonna take that. We are going to pour that into our dry mixture. And then we're just gonna take with a fork and kind of mix it all up. And what you're looking for is you're looking for a dough that is a little bit sticky. Not a lot sticky, just a little bit sticky. And sometimes the case is, I'm throwing this up. If you don't make a mess, it's not gonna taste good. That's another rule in my book. Sometimes, which I did this on purpose, it's a little bit dry. See how that's not quite adhering together? We don't want that. So what you do is you get a little more water, hot water, and you're just gonna add that in, and then go back to your mixing. Once you have your dry and wet ingredients all incorporated nice and smooth, and you've got one nice lump of dough, you're gonna take this, and we're gonna take it and we're gonna cover it. Really difficult. We're gonna take and we're gonna set this off to the side for 5 minutes. And that gives it a chance to start proofing a little bit and get on its way to make it a nice crust. Now, pizza dough is kind of like our life. It undergoes a transformation. As you saw, we took in with that fork and we kind of down in there. It takes a beating to get where it needs to be, but the end result is this amazing crispy crust on the outside and this soft bread-like texture on the inside, which for me is the perfect crust. Some people like thin, some like super thick deep dish. This is the style that I like, and it's worth the effort to put into, just like our life. What happens if you don't have good yeast in there is the dough gets really tough, and then you can't stretch it, and it doesn't want to rise, and it doesn't taste good because it's really, really dense. That's the same way with us. If we don't allow the Lord to stretch us without resisting, life just gets tougher. It doesn't get easier. Now, that doesn't mean life's easy, but we can make it tougher on ourselves by resisting when the Lord's trying to grow us and teach us some things. So let's be like good crust, because here's the thing. Hard times, they're normal, and hard times are not nice. But thank the Lord, hard times are not eternal. There will come a day when we will have no more hard times. But meanwhile, those hard times grow us and make us a better person. Okay, so let's go to the next thing. We're going to do a sauce. Now, this is my cheat method of sauce. If you're one of those, like sometimes you have one of those days and you think, oh, it's almost dinner time and I have not thought about what to do yet. If you have these kind of ingredients in your pantry, you can throw together a pizza sauce in no hurry. You don't have to cook it. It's one of those no fuss methods. You just need a few starter items. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna start with, I usually use the Hunt's Traditional. It has a little bit of flavor in it, but it's a pretty good base. And then we can go from there. And then also I use a can of fire roasted diced tomatoes with basil, garlic, and oregano. So you just pour those in. Looky there, we're halfway done with our sauce. Mix them up a little bit. Now, here's your seasonings. Here's what I put in mine. I put a tablespoon of oregano. Then we're gonna add in a tablespoon of Italian seasoning. And then I have each tablespoon of salt, and I use the real salt, which if you've not used this is out of Utah. It is wonderful salt. It is great for you. Actually helps with heart and does not raise your blood pressure. It's great stuff. And then I also use fresh ground pepper, restaurant style butcher pepper, that is great stuff because it has that fresh cracked pepper taste, but I don't have to take the time to do it. So we're gonna pour that in. And then we also need a teaspoon of onion powder. And then the last thing we need is garlic powder. Now garlic powder, I'm gonna tell you a secret. Garlic powder you don't measure with a spoon. You measure it with your heart. So put that garlic powder in there, and then we're just gonna take and we're gonna mix that up. Incorporate those seasonings. And they're dry, so they'll start to absorb as they open up. They will start to absorb the tomato flavor, and which will then in turn turn around and put the flavor of those seasonings into your tomatoes. So here we go. We've mixed it. That's all we need to do. So that's something else that we're just gonna take and whoop, we're gonna set it off to the side, and the pizza sauce is done. No fuss, which is a cool thing. The next thing we need to do is we need to grab a pan. Now this pizza is actually going to somebody, so I'm putting it on a throwaway, but this is typical size, average size of a cookie sheet. And you just take and you put a little bit of your olive oil in the pan. And then I take a paper towel and you just kind of make sure you get all the edges. This will help your crust to be crispy, but also not to stick to the pan and lose part of your crust. Okay, and once you have that done, now what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our pizza crust up here. And as you can see, it's already started to, it's still sticky, but it's already started to raise and stuff. So that's a good thing. So now what we need to do is we need to get some more of that olive oil. We need to put that olive oil on our hands. You can see I took my rings off because I'm gonna have pizza crust everywhere. So take and put this in your pan. Put that down in there, just like that. And again, make sure you have plenty of olive oil, and then just kind of take your pizza, and as you're pushing it down initially, you're spreading that olive oil over the top so that pizza crust does not stick to your fingers. And then what you're gonna do is you're just gonna spread it out. And I'm gonna add a little more olive oil as I do the corners. And you wanna get that pizza crust in all the corners, get it nice and spread out. Now I already have my oven preheated, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set this crust off to the side on top of the oven, and it will continue to raise and we'll get a nice fluffy pizza crust out of this. So we got it all spread out, and it may pull away a little bit from the corners if you have too much oil in there. But you're gonna leave it sit just like this. We're gonna move it off to the stove and just let it sit there and do its little thing. So we've got our pizza crust done. We have our sauce sitting. The very next thing we need to do is work on our toppings. But here's what I want to talk about. Getting back to our lesson. Psalm 18:1-3, it says, I will love thee, O Lord, my strength. The Lord is my rock and my fortress and my deliverer, my God, my strength, in whom I will trust, my buckler and the horn of my salvation, and my high tower. I will call upon the Lord, who is worthy to be praised. So shall I be saved from mine enemy. So here's my question I want to ask y'all. How many of you have taken an emotional or physical health or spiritual beating recently? Anybody here have gotten away with it in the last year with no issues? How about maybe in the last week? What about today? Maybe this morning you already have had some struggles this morning. And I'm hoping this lesson would just give you a minute to pause and take a deep breath and realize that God has you in all your moments of every day of your life. And it is worth it to serve Jesus with everything that we have. And while we talk about this, I am going to cut up the toppings. And I will try not to give you a show by removing any of my digits while doing this. Okay, so for your toppings, you can have whatever you like. I'm one of those. I like meat. I like fruit. No, I don't like fruit. That's a joke. I don't like pineapple on my pizza. I like meat. I like vegetables. And I like lots of it piled on top of me. So you can listen to while we talk, and I'm going to chop some things up while we talk about some different things. So are you ready for a really, really deep thought? You know what? Here's my deep thought. We each need to normalize that being a chaplain's family isn't the norm. It's not the norm for most full-time ministries. It has some very different facets to it that aren't necessarily there in other full-time ministries. And it's very important that we normalize this. It's not greater or less than any other ministry. All ministries are important. God has lots of things for lots of people. He creates each of us for exactly, He designed us to do certain things. And we're all made different, and He has different things for each of us to do. We have to learn that difference and then realize that we need to embrace the fact it's normal and fall in love with the abnormal normal of being in the chaplaincy. And don't worry about those who don't understand it. You're always going to have that. It wouldn't matter what ministry you're in. There'll always be people that don't understand what you do. And don't worry about it. And then there's some people, they think that our husbands have chosen less of a ministry. And that's also not the truth, because the Lord built our husbands, their life experience before them, their personalities, everything about them God knew and put it there in order to make them into great chaplains. Let's be honest and take a moment and pause and say, thank you, Lord, for our husbands. They are some great chaplains who have done some great work as the Lord has led them to different people and different ministries within each of their duty station. And I am so thankful for the husband that God gave me and how God designed him specifically for the job that he does in the military. I think I have too many onions. So we're going to put these extra off to the side. I got onion happy. One of the things about food is, remember, you eat with your eyes first. So I'm one of those that I love color when I do food. And red onions are very good for you. They're actually better for you raw than cooked, but very good for you. So back to what we were talking about. We need to remember that it is an honor to not only serve the Lord, that's an honor for all of us as Christians, but it's also an honor to serve the military. These young men and women are heroes that are willing every morning that they get up to put their life on the line. And they're willing to go overseas and sacrifice their life if need be in order that war doesn't come to our home front. And I very much appreciate that. I think of those in the Ukraine, and I can't imagine the fear of those children and those mothers trying to figure out how they're going to protect their children from a war that they did not create but are now involved in. So remember that you too can be a heroine to your children and to your husband. It is our duty to show them that it is a blessing to be in the chaplaincy and not a drudgery. So normalize the fact that our ministry isn't normal. Many Christians and many in full-time ministry cannot fully understand that. Be okay with it and see it as the gift from God that we get to experience things that many others don't. Just like missionaries and pastors that each have their own unique area of experience that others of us don't get to do. It's the same way with the chaplaincy. How many of you have had the privilege of welcoming home your husband from a deployment? This is what I'm talking about when I say that there's some things that you just can't explain, that you'll experience that there are no words. Whether you see those guys coming in full uniform, they march around the corner towards you and you're trying to figure out which one's your husband, or you see that line of buses and it's just hundreds and hundreds of military guys on these buses ready to be with their families. The very air itself is charged, and there's no way to describe it. It just, even thinking about it right now, it gives me goosebumps. There's just something in that very air as these men who've been away come back home. And that is something that you have to experience. You cannot explain that to somebody, and we get to experience that. Yes, that means that the front side of that is a deployment, but we get to experience that wonderful thing of our husbands coming back and reuniting our families together. For us, that's normal. My husband's been on 7 deployments. That's normal for us. Doesn't mean it gets easier or that we like it. No, but it's our normal. So what else do we need to normalize? What else we do? How about this? We need to normalize that rough days happen. That's what we need to normalize, because they do happen. It is the way it is. Things are difficult and rough, but it's not like we have it worse than somebody else. But it also doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. Nobody should invalidate the fact that you're having a hard time, that you're struggling. But we need to be able to take that struggle and reach out, whether it's to the Lord, to a family, to someone else. There are going to be struggles, and we need to normalize the fact that we will struggle. And sometimes there's things that happen in our life that will bring us to our knees, take our very breath away. We don't have to keep that inside. Somehow in Christianity, we have this thing, especially among fundamentalists, that to say I'm struggling, I'm having a hard time, I didn't do well today, that makes you less of a person, and it doesn't. It takes a big person to reach out and say, I need help. And we need to normalize that, because it's not healthy to pretend that everything is okay when it's not. Don't be an ostrich. Bury your head in the sand. Guess what? When an ostrich buries its head in the sand, guess what's still sticking out of the air? Exactly. So we don't want to be an ostrich. Ephesians 4:12 tells us that a 3-4 cord is not quickly broken, because not only do we all have struggles, but so are our children. And how we respond to those struggles, we're teaching them how to respond to them. So we want to be careful about that and how we cope with them, because it's hard on them, just as it's hard on us. We want them to not resent what their daddy does, not resent the fact that he misses out on so much because he's gone, but show them by joy of our serving the Lord in the good times and the bad times. As you can see, we have already started putting the pizza together, and I'm one of those that I like to put the pepperoni on the bottom and the top, and then go ahead and add all the rest of the goodies. Our youngest, Micah, when he was 4, his daddy was deployed to Iraq. And him and I sat down and we wrote the song together. It goes like this. My daddy is a hero, air, land, and sea. Goes off to fight in wars, he helps to keep us free. He is a Marine down to his core, wants his men to know the Lord. My daddy is a hero, air, land, and sea. Years ago he left his home at age 18. He knew he must do his part, so he joined the Marines. They taught him how to shoot and fight, found Jesus as the one true light. My daddy is a hero, air, land, and sea. Then he married Mama, I'm one of 3. We traveled from coast to coast more times than I can count. We love serving our country's best, they're cut above the rest. My daddy is a hero, air, land, and sea. Now he is a chaplain, Navy, Marines. He's been gone from home so long, will he know who I am? I'll hug his neck and hold him tight, squeeze him with all my might. My daddy is a hero, air, land, and sea. Daddy, you're my hero, come home to me. Okay, so we have our pizza all put together, all the goodies and the yummy stuff. We got our sauce in there. That also is like life. We're getting ready to pop it in the oven to cook it. But think about this pizza sauce. Without spice in our life, Just as the pizza would go flat in the flavor, so will our life. You want to have a rich life, a full life. Live it to its fullest. I want to be spicy for my husband. I want to be show the sweetness of the Lord to my children, and I want to pass that on to other people and help other people in that. I want to share the love, the spice of being a wonderful, happy, joyful Christian to those around me that are not saved. I'm not an adrenaline junkie by any means, but I don't mind new adventures and I don't mind new challenges, because who knows what God has for you just around the next corner. I'm also not one of those that, likes things so hot that my tongue goes numb, but I do like the depth of flavor. And when we let the Lord work on us, he can incorporate spice into our life and give us depth, and that's what I want. Just like this pizza, we can have depth of flavor, depth of goodies, and that's how I want my life to be. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and pop this in the oven. All right, our pizza is in the oven, and now we come to the best part of every meal, which is the dessert. So we're gonna put the final touch on our meal with something tasty, and yep, I went with chocolate. Not just any chocolate, this is a Mexican hot chocolate cupcake, which means it has dark chocolate, cinnamon, and cayenne in the cake as well as in the icing, and it's topped with, we're gonna fire roast the marshmallows and put those on top. And while we're doing that, I wanna tell you why dessert is important in our spiritual life and our emotional life, because that is the sweetness. When we do things the way God wants us to do them, then he adds the sweetness. And these are where you have the experiences and the ministries that God calls you to in each duty station, and the stories that you get to tell. And I could tell you story after story about how it's been with us since we've been in California now for a year, and all the wonderful things and the wonderful people that God has brought our way. I started doing cupcakes. I started selling them out of the house, and that opened doors. We have people now that stand on our porch daily chit-chatting and talking. Fridays is flavor of the weekday, where people in the area can come by and taste test a new flavor of cupcake and give me feedback. And we have opportunities to witness to people, to have a part in their life. We have a couple of single parent officers. One is a mom, one is a dad, raising a son on their own while being in the military. And we have been able to input into their life. The male officer, he comes by every Friday. He stops by. We hand him fresh cupcakes for him and his son, and usually a homemade meal that they can take home, and that's what they look forward to every Friday night. And he's somebody that comes from a background that he doesn't believe in God at all, and we have had the opportunity to witness and to be an example to him that there's something different about us. And he has told us more than once, he's like, y'all are you're just not normal. You do things for people. You don't have strings attached, and you love on people, and I've never had somebody do that. And that is the biggest compliment you can give our families, when you tell us that we're not normal, because what that means is we are stepping aside and trying to help people to see Jesus through our life, that they can also have that in their life as well. This ministry here has also, we've been able to, Micah came home for Christmas last year. We got all dressed up. We got some Christmas music going. We got goodies for the kids, and we went out dressed. We did it 2 different times. It took us all day to do both rounds, and we were able to pass out over 1,000 items to the children in the area. We got to meet all the children, and we were dressed originally as Christmas characters, and then we came back to the house and changed, and then we dressed as the nativity characters, and we had Micah standing on top of the truck. He was Gabriel, and he had wings that were 6 feet tall by 6 feet wide, and when that wind hit, it was amazing. And the children just loved it, and they now call me the cupcake lady. They figured out that the same people that go around and hand them out goodies and dress as Pete characters also have the cupcakes. And again, it's a ministry to the children here, because a lot of military are not necessarily, some may be from a religious background, but there's not a lot of saved military. They come to us, they do door dashes. They've left us thank you notes and food, half-eaten crackers, colored pictures. I got carnations left on my doorstep at Valentine's Day, because we are reaching into their lives and making a difference. We are taking the sweetness that God has given to us by our willingness to do things for him, and we are giving that back to the community. And in return, God is opening doors in a state, in an area where there's not a lot of sold out, born again, fundamental Christian, we are able to do that and have a ministry to these people. I have fed maintenance crews who have been working on my house for a week, power washing and painting. The crew leader told me to stop because he said they were never going to finish my house if they knew they could eat here. We went from feeding 2 to 4 to 6 to 8 to 16 by the time it was said and done. But these are unique ways that God has given me to show me that everything is worth it. If I can get to heaven and I have my children standing beside me and they have spent their life serving God, it's worth it. If I have people that I've been able to minister to throughout our chaplaincy that have gotten saved, that have dedicated their lives to the Lord, that have raised their families right, and it's gone from generation to generation, it's worth it. So yeah, there's days that are hard. There's days we struggle, and it's okay to struggle. It's normal to struggle. Reach out, find your footing again. But it is so worth all the benefit of being able to take something that God has impressed on our hearts to do and finding that beautiful, beautiful sweetness and doing something about it. God puts the cherry on top. Remember I said we would do fire roasted? Check this out. God puts us through fire, not because he's trying to destroy us, not because he doesn't love us, but because he wants to turn us into something beautiful. He wants to turn us into something sweet. He wants people to see Jesus in us. His desire is that all men come to know the Lord. And that's very important that we do our part and bring that sweetness to other people's lives. And we can do that each and every day if we allow the Lord to work in our lives, to not put God in a box, to not set our own parameters, but let God be the one to set our boundaries, set our lifestyle, what we say, where we go, what we do, what we wear, how we interact. May it always please the Lord and show Christ in us, because one day if we do that and we stay faithful, it will be worth it all. Pizza is fresh out of the oven. Doesn't that look great? Wish you could smell it, and I wish you could pop over some lunch. That would be wonderful. We could have lunch together. I love each and every one of you. Praise the Lord today, whether it's a good day or bad day. It is worth it all. And the good days, yes. And the bad days, still definitively yes. It is worth it to spend our life serving Jesus.